ఓకే.
నేను కన్సల్టెన్సీలో ఫస్ట్ వెళ్ళాలి ప్రాసెస్ ప్రొసీజర్కి అంతా. సో వాళ్ళు రిలీజ్ యూనివర్సిటీ ఆ తర్వాత రిజిస్టర్ ఇచ్చారు. జస్ట్ అప్లై చేసి వచ్చింది. ఓకే అది తర్వాత కొన్ని వాళ్ళకి టెస్ట్లు తను కంపెనీలో ఉంది. సో షీ సజెస్ట్ కానీ అందులో
ఓకే ఓకే అదే ఓకే सर पेन ड्राइव
नीचे है मुझे ले जाओ।
पेन ड्राइव नीचे खोलना क्या
Yeah. Let's get started. So this is June 3rd. Okay. Science and current affairs. Now, there are two news that are from PIB and the others are from newspapers. Okay. Now, first thing is this secretary. What is this? DAE, Department of Atomic Energy. Okay. And so DAE secretary and chairman of AEC. AEC is Atomic Energy Commission. You will see all these bodies later. So the core thing is that he recently visited Tarapur Atomic Power Station. Basically nuclear power plant, you understand? Correct? So in Tarapur also we have one of the oldest nuclear power plant which he visited recently. Now, so there are some things unique about this Tarapur Atomic Power Station. So TAPS is this. Now, so basically this is India's first nuclear power plant that was commissioned. Okay, units 1 and 2. These were commissioned in 1969 and it is still operating, which makes it one of the oldest operating commercial nuclear power reactor in the world. Okay. Now, let's see it first. Yeah, see this. Can you see Tarapur in Maharashtra? So this is Tarapur Atomic Power Plant. Now, this is India's first nuclear plant and here it is written BWR. What is this? R is reactor. What do you think BW? Okay, so this is a boiling water reactor. Understand a bit about it. Okay. So this is a boiling water reactor. these two were the original ones that were made for the first time. This is units 1 and 2, and these were boiling water reactors. Now what are boiling water reactors? Understand this. See, essentially one thing you would know is basically what we do in, see, whatever form of energy we generate, eventually we use this energy to boil water. Then water generates steam, and from this steam it turns the turbine. Turbine is some structure like this that will go around like this, and this will go to a generator and electricity is generated. This is the core way how electricity is usually generated. Now, we have done basics of chemistry classes? No classes, no? Okay. So the thing is, you know about, you know what is boiling? Boiling, you know, correct? So you are heating something, for example, water. So usually what you say, that the boiling point of water is 100 degrees Celsius. At 100 degrees Celsius, it starts boiling. Now, what if I increase the pressure above it? So this 100 degrees Celsius is for the normal atmospheric conditions. By normal atmospheric condition, like you have here now, so the boiling point is 100 degrees Celsius. What if the surrounding changes? For example, so what actually happens if this is a liquid, these are the molecules, they are being attracted by each other, turning into gas is basically these molecules becoming farther and farther, that is breaking all these bonds and moving away or escaping away. Now, if there is no force from the top, if there is very low atmospheric pressure, there is nothing, so then this can happen very easily. But if there is something that is trying to push it down or not allow it to convert into vapor, then the boiling point will increase. So you intuitively understand that if the atmospheric conditions, or if directly you can say, if the pressure is very high, then what you will have, the boiling point will increase. So if I keep on applying pressure on the water from the top, then it won't boil at 100 degrees Celsius, then it will boil at a much higher temperature. Now, earlier we didn't have technology for applying this pressure. Why you will apply this pressure? Because once anything turns gas, then it has to follow this flow, correct? But you cannot put in more energy into it. Immediately at 100 degrees Celsius it will start boiling, whatever energy you can get out of it, and then it's gone, correct? But if I can heat it without boiling it for like 200, 500, 600 degrees Celsius, more transfer of energy, more electricity I can get eventually. But for that I have to contain it in liquid form before. So this is what is done in pressurized heavy water reactors. So overall, they create pressure walls through which you can increase the temperature to much higher, and then only you allow it to turn into gas. So earlier we didn't have this technology, so we had boiling water reactors where water was constantly boiling. Then later on we developed pressurized heavy water reactors. This is India's mainstay now. So most of the nuclear power plants that you hear of are now pressurized heavy water reactors. So Tarapur also has both of these. This is the oldest one that is being talked about in the PIB article. This also you should know that unit 3 and 4 is actually pressurized heavy water reactor. Fine. Then, yeah, so this was, in this case, we were held by United States. Okay. For different power plants, the initial ones, we were held by different countries. Now, so same thing is mentioned here also. So Tarapur occupies, yeah, so he visited, and so recently what has happened, we have extended it for 10 more years. For a decade more we have extended it, so that the Tarapur is operational for even more time. Now, so India is also keeping this operational or active because it shows India's growth. So that is why we are trying to keep it active. Then, yeah, it's the same thing. Now, this again, this can be one of the statement that is asked. So Tarapur was one of the first nuclear power station in Asia outside the Soviet bloc. So earlier, before, we are talking about 1969. So then what you consider as Asia, for example, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, all these regions were also part of Soviet bloc, that is USSR, correct? So that is why saying that at that time, if you consider whatever left was Asia, so that there, this was the first nuclear power station in Asia. Understood? Then now this diagram is important. So this year also they asked one question on different kinds of semiconductor fabrication and another kind of plant. They asked the main thing about it, that in this plant this is happening, like that. Similar question can be framed for this also. So they have different unique things. So in India, if I give you an overall picture, we have 24 reactors in 7 nuclear plants. Reactor is that chamber from which you can generate energy or get energy. We have only 7 nuclear plants, but within that nuclear plant, for example, in Tarapur, we have 4 units. So similarly, many units are there in nuclear plants, and we have 24 reactors. Now, these are the name of all the reactors that we have. Narora Atomic Power Plant, this is in UP. Then this is on the banks of river Ganga, site for designing Bharat small reactors or small modular reactors, small modular ones we are trying to make, because nuclear power plants require a lot of things all the time, land, this, that. Earlier we didn't have a technology to make it in small parts, but now we can. Why it is on the banks of river Ganga? Yes. So when you do geography, you will understand about how industries are located. This is one of the topic. There you will understand that water availability is important for some of these industries, and that is why it is on the banks of river Ganga. Then this is Madras Atomic Power Station, Kalpakkam. So this is first indigenously developed reactor. Then prototype FBR, this we'll understand. So basically, I think in last current affairs also we talked about that Homi Jahangir Bhabha gave 3-stage nuclear program. In that, second stage was achieved, that I told you. So it was achieved in this Madras Atomic Power Plant or Kalpakkam. Then next you have Kundankulam Nuclear Power Station. This is the newest and largest from Russian assistance. Okay, then this is Kaiga. This is in Karnataka. This is France has collaborated in this, and this is India's first nuclear power plant, Tarapur. Then you have Kakrapur. So this is Canada, and this is the first pressurized heavy water reactor in India. It is in Rawatbhata. You know Kota? Rawatbhata is very close to Kota, like 50 kilometers. Okay, so again, Chambal River banks. So these are the 7 main nuclear plants that we have. Just a second. Then next is biopharmaceuticals. These are shaping the future of modern healthcare, all this. Okay. Yeah. Now, see this. Now, Biopharma Shakti envisages the launch of 100 biologics by 2047, says Union Minister of State for Chemicals and Fertilizers. Okay, now understand this. So Biopharma Shakti is an overall scheme with respect to biotechnology in India. Now, what she is saying is 100 biologics by 2047. So we'll understand what is this biologics and terms related to it. So there are two terms, biologics and biosimilars. First, let's understand that, then we'll come back to it. Yeah. See, biologics. Now, you know about pharmaceuticals, the simple pharmaceuticals that you have. For example, the paracetamol, amoxicillin that you eat. What is that? That is some chemical compound, correct? Given to you in precipitate form and that you eat, correct? That is pharmaceutical. Now, what is biologics? This you understand. So, these are some complex medicines that are manufactured from living biological resources. Now, here you can have like bacteria, viruses, all these. Also, you can have proteins and all that. Basically, all these biological sources are there instead of being made up of chemicals. Now, examples of this is, for example, monoclonal antibodies, vaccines, all these are examples of biologics. Monoclonal antibodies, you know, monoclonal antibodies. See, antibody, you know, what is antibody? Yes, so basically when you get a disease, pathogen, anything, your body tends to generate antibodies against it. Now, what they do, see, antibodies, some people are generating antibodies, it's fine. But what if you, let's say you got some disease and immediately your body is not generating enough antibodies. So doctors must do something. So they have got now new techniques, which is monoclonal antibodies. So they take this antibodies, which should have been produced by your body. They make multiple artificial copies of it in labs, correct? So they will make antibodies in the lab. Why it is called monoclonal? Because you take one molecule, you make clones of it, correct? This was also a PYQ in which the first statement itself was the one that was giving you answer. So it was an extreme statement which said that monoclonal antibodies are man-made proteins, which is the correct statement, correct? Because what is the natural one? Natural is antibodies. Monoclonal antibodies comes when you make them in labs and factories. Now, so what is this? This is very similar to biological molecule, and this is an example of biologics. Similarly, you will learn about vaccines. Sometimes you might have heard of dead viruses and bacteria being used in vaccine vials that are injected in you to generate an immune response. So these are biologics. Understood the difference between pharmaceuticals and biologics? Now, the future. This is the future. These are much more pertinent, as in much more precise in nature. For example, vaccines can treat a particular disease instead of ki bas antibiotic khali, okay? Otherwise, you're just eating anything, correct? So these are much more precise in that way and also more effective. But these are much more complex also. The normal pharmaceutical, if you just turn it over, it will tell you the 3 molecules it is made up of. 10 mg, 5 mg, 5 mg, milaya, done. But this is much more complex, and also the transportation and everything, the research for it takes a lot of time, correct? So this is biologics. Now, biologics is what these very big companies that are into research and all, they will make it. They will spend a lot of money, make biologics, make vaccines, correct? Like Serum Institute made a vaccine. Now, after that, what happens? After some time, so for some time they will have patent, but patent will expire sometime. Once the patent expires, now they must be made by some company that can generate a lot of these same biologics that have similar efficacy, but it is just made in very large numbers and by using much little money, but it will have same efficacy, correct? So these are called biosimilars. If you want to compare it, this is like pharmaceutical drugs that you have, the very costly drugs and all, and add a similar of this is made called generic drugs. Correct? Which are same things but at a much cheaper cost and have almost the same efficacy. But it is produced, it is mass produced. Similar to this, biologics is biosimilar. Copy of biologics that enter the market after patent expires. Understood both the terms? Now, see, India is not a huge player here. Where we are huge are generic drugs. So we are called the pharmacy of the world because we produce a lot of them. Okay, so once patent expires, we are the one that is making them. Now, just think about it. Many drugs also now we have started making with newer companies and everything. But now think that India is a key player, one of the most important players with respect to pharmaceuticals. What if the world starts shifting towards biologics, which is much more effective? Then what we'll do? हमको तो chemical mix करना आता है. That is why the government is focusing on that we becomes global hub for these two also. Otherwise, essentially whatever that big industry you have in pharma, you will lose out on it. Understood? Now, this is the understanding part. Now we will just see the factual details. Yeah, see, from this only you can understand that making biologics is so difficult. So it is saying 100 biologics by 2047, which is also like a very far off target. So they are so difficult to make. Biosimilars are just copy of that. Then biopharmaceuticals are shaping the future of modern healthcare, and India is well positioned to emerge as a global leader in this transformative sector. Of course, it's PIB, so they will tell you this. Then, so Biopharma Shakti also has this goal. Then, now this line is useful for mains, noting that biologics are expected to account for nearly 40% of prescription drugs by 2031. Correct? So it is expected that by 2031 the doctors, when they write prescription, they will be giving you biologics instead of giving those old pharmaceutical drugs. Then now initiatives such as PRIP scheme, National Biopharma Mission are helping create a robust ecosystem for innovation research of all these two. Okay, then see in PIB now, if you try to read it on your own, you will see that they will mention a lot of names. Those are not important to us. Very few lines will be important. Okay, so for other subjects also, when you are reading PIB, don't get bogged down because there are so many articles, this, that. You will realize once you understand the syllabus and PYQs that very few of them are useful. And even in that, what I have highlighted is 2, 3, 4 lines. That's it. Yeah, so this is done. Now we have these two topics. One is this Artemis 3. Okay, you know about Artemis? You might have heard of Artemis 2, in which basically recently like USA sent 3 people around moon and then they came back. Correct? So that was Artemis 2. Now this is Artemis 3. First let's understand this. Let's see all 4 of them, all 5 together, and then we'll see what is the focus point here. Yeah, see, there was something known as Apollo missions. If of course you won't remember as such, but it was in 1969 to 72, correct? This was the first time that Neil Armstrong and all those set foot on the moon, correct? So those were the Apollo missions. Once they did that, within 3-4 years, they closed it down because it used to cost a lot of money and there was nothing more at that time that we could carry out then. Correct? So here the Apollo's missions were only for becoming or for the human to reach moon. to set foot on the moon. That was the core aim. Now, after many years, now we have Artemis missions. So Artemis missions, first of all, they have the larger aim of it is permanent settlement on moon. That is, permanently if we want to settle there, not all of us will go there, but we will have like some energy resource, correct, some resource for basic housing, basic things, so that we want to make. So that is our aim, that is eventually we want to develop infrastructure on moon. This is the aim, correct. Now the first one, after many years, uncrewed test of the space launch system, rocket and Orion spacecraft. So basically what happened here, nothing much, just there was nobody there and they just tested that this is going and coming back, nothing much. Now in the second one, so it went around moon, come back. Now in the Artemis 2, this was the first crewed flight to orbit the moon and return to earth. Here also no landing, nothing. So if this was moon, so if this was earth, so they went like this around earth and then around moon and came back, nothing much. This was Artemis 2. Why it is written crewed? Because it had 3 people in it. Understood? Then these 2 are completed. This was completed in 2026 itself. Then now we come to Artemis 3. It used to be something different. Now they have changed the initiatives. Okay. So that is why if you are referring to some old article or not, you will get the wrong information. The thing is, so they have shifted it. Earlier Artemis 3 was the one in which humans were to land there. But then they understood that this would be in too much haste or hurry. So that is why Artemis 3 is now what? So it will test commercial lunar landers in low Earth orbit. So this is mainly about docking. So what essentially will happen? Understand this. So this Orion spacecraft that was used earlier also in our earlier missions, this Orion spacecraft will go. Okay. Now in the low Earth orbit, nothing, moon is very far. You are right now in low Earth orbit only, a few hundred kilometers. Now here only what will happen? This spacecraft is there. Now this spacecraft, let's say this is Orion spacecraft. This spacecraft will dock with SpaceX and Blue Origin spacecrafts that are going around. What is docking? Docking is basically, see, both of these entities, all these are going at very high speeds, like 2700 km/h kind of speed. Now in that speed, it becomes very difficult for them to dock together, that is like club together like this. Then only one person can go from here to here, for example, or here to here. Correct? So that is a very intricate process. Like India also did SpaceX mission where we also showed this capability that we can dock 2 spacecrafts in space. Very important. See, if I'm trying to dock these 2 things, they're going at very high speed. If I'm not able to do it perfectly, can you see that this will be like a collision? And at collision at 2700 km/h, blast, immediate blast. Correct? So that is why docking is very important. Correct? Ultimately, you want to go there. So now, this is what is being done in Artemis 3. We are doing this docking in the low Earth orbit only. Then you will have Artemis 4, where you will have crewed lunar landing since Apollo. So in Artemis 4, that has to be done in early 2028. Humans will land again on moon. And Artemis 5 will be second mission to establish a regular lunar presence. Here they will start doing some infrastructure and everything. So this is the Artemis. Why we are reading this? See, usually we focus mainly on India, but something that is taking the entire humanity forward, that also we try to cover. And Artemis is one such mission. Now, yeah, so what is Artemis 3? It is part of NASA's Artemis program to return humans to the moon. It has been redesigned as an Earth orbit test mission scheduled for 2027 now. 2-week mission in low Earth orbit. Now, Orion will dock with Blue Moon and Starship landers. Now see this. Why we have written lander here? Lander, why we are calling it lander? So there are 2-3 components in all these missions eventually, not right now. One is rover that goes around, for example, moon. It will go around the moon. Then there is lander, correct? So lander will do what? Sorry, that was orbiter. Then lander will land on the moon, rover will move on the moon. So this is about landing on the moon. Now these are right now not on moon, this is very close to Earth, but eventually what we have to do, this Orion spacecraft has to land on moon. And how it will land? By docking to this Starship or Blue Origin, correct? So right now what they have done, they have went to low Earth orbit and they have docked together. Now in this case, in case of Blue Origin, there are astronauts that are in this Orion spacecraft. They have went from here to here, and then they have stayed in Blue Origin for some time, did some experiments, and then they came back. Okay, in Starship they have only docked, nothing much. So this has been done. So test docking systems, live support systems, and mission software, correct? So Orion spacecraft we have already developed, we know it is safe. So now they went there, they tried to stay in Blue Origin. If there was some issue where humans are feeling this, that, whatever, it's not safe, then they will come back. Right now you have that safety. That is why these are testing missions. Eventually what will happen? If they get stuck here, so that is why it is being checked here. Actual crewed moon landing has been shifted to Artemis 4 now. What is the importance? Reduces risk before future lunar missions, support long-term human presence on moon, importance for future deep space and Mars missions, strengthens US leadership in space exploration. Nothing much. Then yeah, last topic, which is Project Kusha. Now what is this? See, this is indigenous extended range air defense system developed by DRDO. Okay, now see this. First understand the entire structure, then you will understand this. Yeah, so India's integrated layered defense shield. Now, okay, we'll study about all of them when you do regular classes. So basically, there are certain parts which are against ballistic missile. Ballistic missiles, you know, for now it is just some missile that is coming like this. So these two systems are against ballistic missiles. These are, so basically, usually defense systems are layered in nature, correct? Layered as in first what will happen? First this BMD will try to stop the missile. If it fails, then what will act? Then this advanced air defense, that is called Ashwin. So then Ashwin will act. If that also fails, then something like simple launchers and all is used by people here to stop the missile. So this is a layered structure for ballistic missile defense. Now similarly, what if an aircraft is trying to enter India through air? So for that also you must have a system. Now here also you have a layered structure like this. Now the outermost layer, why it is called outermost layer? It is not with respect to that this is kept far, correct? Outermost is defined as how far it can intercept a missile, how far it can destroy it, correct? So here the outermost layer is area defense. S400 you have heard. S400 is an example of, this is S400, this is an example of outer layer defense, correct? Now if it is able to escape this, then it comes to medium range missiles that will try to tackle it, then there will be point defense, and at last there will be some very short defense. Can you see very short defenses? Just people with launchers. Last line of defense is them only, correct? So this is the flow. Now what they have done, so here you have medium range and here you have S400, which is very high tech, correct? So S400 cost is actually imported from Russia, so very costly for us and all that. That is why we are trying to develop something in between them that can reach almost the range of S400, and that is what we are calling as Project Kusha. Understood? This is the part that we are talking about now. Now see, so this is what? So this is indigenous extended range air defense system developed by DRDO, long range surface to air missile system for the Indian Armed Forces. Then key features, earlier known as extremely range surface to air missiles. Okay, so earlier the name was this, now the name is, it has been renamed as Kusha. Now bridges the gap between medium range surface to air missile. Why we are saying surface? Because from surface it is trying to destroy the missile coming or aircraft coming from the air. So it bridges the gap between MRSAM and S400. Understood? So MRSM is usually like 80 to 100 kilometer max, and this is like usually 400 to 600 kilometers. So there is a gap in between which Project Kusha will fill. Now see this, that is why the three versions of it that you have also are in this range only. M1 is 150 kilometer, M2 is 250 kilometer, M3 is 350 to 400 kilometers. Then this is integrated with the IASS network, that whole network that you saw. Okay, then important, strengthen India's layered air defense network, enhances self-reliance in defense technology, and reduces dependence on foreign systems. Why we are writing this? Because essentially S400 we are completely dependent on them. This we are trying to develop on our own. This is Project Kusha. Okay, yeah, this is it. Done. Thank you.